Hello and welcome. It's Jason and Zach again with RTB Technologies. And today we want to talk about collaboration tools and guest accounts, specifically within Microsoft environments. So what I'm talking about here is modern tools give you a great way to collaborate with a trusted partner outside of your organization and collaborate within your digital environment. You think that access is limited during this, and but in all actuality, you can be giving them the keys to your environment. Because you see, researchers have recently discovered that guest accounts in Microsoft can be manipulated to silently gain powerful privileges without even having your direct consent. So there's got to be ways to safely collaborate and ways that might open you up to unnecessary risk. Zach, what are we talking about here, and kind of what are some best practices that people might be able to abide by to help protect themselves and their organization?
Yeah, let's first start off with talking about what actually will make a guest user in a Microsoft tenant, right? A lot of people will say that they collaborate by, oh, I share a file link, things like that. That's not going to actually create a guest user in your tenant. Without going into the whole Entra AD thing, we'll steer clear of that. We'll just stay at top level. So one of the things is like when you're sharing a file, a guest user account's not automatically created in the tenant unless you're inviting the external user to collaborate on a team M365 group. So teams as in teams, inviting them to your team in Teams, your M365 group or a SharePoint site, specifically a SharePoint site, not the file, right? Sharing a file through a link, even with external users, typically doesn't create a guest account. Instead, the recipient uses their existing Microsoft account to access the shared content. So when you add someone via Teams in a team, your M365 tenant or group, or a SharePoint site, you're actually allowing them to use your corporate resources as far as your corporate accounts and licenses for Word, Excel, PowerPoint, pick whichever one you want, to access and collaborate on that file or that site. And that just does not happen when we're talking about just sharing a specific file.
That is great clarification. Yeah, because there's certainly a difference between collaborating on a single file versus actually doing something that would create a guest account. Because yeah, I mean, if an attacker was to get a hold of that guest account, elevate privileges, it's kind of like allowing somebody to get a visitor badge to your building, right? If you think about just physical access, they got a visitor badge, and you think, okay, they just have temporary access, and normally that would allow them to have access, safe access to controlled environments. But imagine somebody copying those badges and then having unconditional access almost. They can come into your building at any time. And that's really the risk that we're talking about whenever these guest accounts are created within Microsoft is, if an attacker can elevate those privileges, start moving laterally, they can end up controlling your systems, undermining your business, and eventually putting you in a liability hot seat. So that was really great information, Zach, on what the difference is between the two. So what can people do to help make sure that they're not giving away too much access unknowingly?
Yeah. So here's just a few things, right? A few high level things. You can configure and enforce your subscription policies, right? So you have to go in, and this is all where we get into a little bit more technical, right? But it's kind of giving you a little playbook here. So if you go in and configure and enforce your subscription policies, that will eliminate some of the threat. You can disable guest to guest invitations. So as a guest, if it's not disabled, a guest can invite another guest and then propagate that. And then they have their own kind of admin environment inside yours. So that's not good. Conditional access policies, that's just a no-brainer and something we should be doing anyway. Audit billing roles. Typically, billing roles will have a higher level of access than most users and guest users. So make sure you're auditing those. Set alerts for guest accounts. So setting an alert for anytime a guest account makes a change or tries to make a change in your environment will then set off some red flags there. And then use Microsoft Purview. Now, not everyone's going to have Microsoft Purview licenses, but that is something that we recommend moving forward.
Fantastic information. Yeah, very handy, very valuable. Hopefully, everybody got a lot of value from that information as well. Hopefully, you learned something today. There's always some risk in something, and we try to help kind of highlight that and help educate people out there so we can help reduce the risk in your environment. So, if you need anything, have any questions, go ahead and reach out to us. Another thing that we can do is during our risk assessments or penetration testing, all that stuff. Sometimes we run a scan on Microsoft 365 environments, which can help identify any unknown guest accounts. So that's another thing that you can do to stay ahead of this. But anyway, thanks for your attention today. Hopefully this was valuable to you, and stay safe out there, stay vigilant. We'll see you next time.